The brilliant disinformation that Trump himself started is working because half the world is discussing it. Iran has two fists. One fist is Hormuz, close it and that's it. The second is called Hezbollah. There are approximately 150,000 rockets stored there. Israel is arming and training the Lebanese army, clearing parts of Lebanon and sending them in as police. For now, they don't have the strength for more, and they continue to train this Lebanese army so that at the right moment they can release them and say, "Us? We did nothing. We just bombed Hezbollah out of there, and now they have their own internal issues. We have nothing to do with this at all." There is a serious discussion about the president's rights. But if you only limit the rights of someone else's president, and when your own comes, you say, "This is my president. Let him do whatever he wants because I like it," right? Then it's not really the law anymore. You just bend it however you want. It's like the Ukrainians, as they say. From 1990 to 2022, Ukraine did nothing to protect itself. Why? Because we have the Budapest M memorandum. But what does it say? Did anyone check? No.
Ukraine from 1990 did to protect Ukraine from 1990 to 2022, to Ukraine to 2022 to protect from did to protect itself. Ukraine from 1990 did to protect itself.
Good afternoon, and I know that you gentlemen in Kiev and all over Ukraine have had tough days. Yes, especially tough ones. Especially tough ones. They've all been tough for a long time. But that's why, well, I wish for the sky to be as clear as possible above. Yes, that's why I wish for the sky to be as clear as possible above you.
Thank you very much. Let's start with the American agenda. Next week, the United States will host the grandest, largest World Cup in history. And for Trump, this is not just about sports. It's a unique moment of triumph. He personally helped promote the U.S. bid back in his first term. Now he will welcome the world as the main host of the tournament. And the Trump administration has long wanted to turn the World Cup into a showcase of American greatness. But what do we see instead? The world sees America, which is at war with Iran. This week we see complicated diplomatic swings. Trump announces progress on the peace track and his readiness to meet with Iran's supreme leader if a deal is reached. Hezbollah rejects the agreement and continues its strikes in Lebanon. Congress is trying to limit it, Trump, presidential military powers, and so on. What real baggage does Trump bring to this World Championship in order, roughly speaking, to save face and present himself to the world as a great peacemaker rather than the president of a warring country?
But Trump is absolutely not interested in presenting anything to the world at all. From the word completely, he's not interested at all. Everything that Trump is interested in, he will get right now. It's to present a beautiful, smiling picture. Everything is great. Everything is wonderful. We're playing games. Our athletes are wonderful young, and now they're going to compete. How good it is for all of us to live in this world. And this will be brilliantly organized and will raise the moral and physical spirit of all Americans. Nothing else interests him at all. And what people abroad think at this moment is no longer interesting. Starting from June 15, no one in the United States of America will be interested in this at all.
But as a soccer fan who follows all the World Cups, I can tell you that it's clear that the attention of millions, hundreds of millions of fans will be focused on the USA. But at the same time, I see that even in the States, there are voices saying that holding a soccer festival in the USA against the backdrop of what's happening in the world looks like cynical sportswashing. They call it, if I'm not mistaken, an attempt to distract the world's attention from an impending humanitarian catastrophe. Against the backdrop of the war in Iran, which was provoked in part by Washington's actions. And I would like to ask you, let's say, to explain the meaning of this term sportswashing. As I understand it, it's reputation laundering, probably through, in this case, major sporting events.
Well, it's a made-up term. I don't even know. I've never heard it until today, so to speak. And now I'm hearing it. Maybe it was invented earlier or just now. But it's a silly term because what, did Trump just come up with it yesterday or something? No, we know that all of this was done in advance, even before any wars. Well, before any wars, so to speak, at least before the war in Iran. That's why this is a planned event. It's not an emergency operation. Naturally, there is a part of the country, so to speak, that is fanatically in favor of taking from the rich and giving to the poor. They want to get something without working. That's why they hate Trump, because he's putting an end to it. There's also a part of the country that was engaged in stealing. In the last 6 months alone, we've probably uncovered about 50 to 100 billion in fraud and theft. And simply put, a lot of people made a living by working and giving their money somewhere, and that money was quickly distributed. Part of it is sent to Ukraine so that some of it can be sent back to the United States and spread across American accounts. Some of it goes somewhere else. In other words, there is a whole industry of people, a huge number, who make a living by robbing us. And by us, I mean those people who, generally speaking, give up part of their money. I try to give as little as possible, by the way. I try, legally of course, to give as little as I can. So here's the thing. They started robbing us. They want Trump to leave, because Trump really gets in the way of their looting. And it seems that the people who will come after him in the Republican Party, like Wens Rubio, or maybe the person who is now in charge, Ron DeSantis, who is running Florida. So if one of this trio, if the Republicans, so to speak, win and go to the White House, he will continue. He will continue the same policy. That's why they need to do everything they can to present all the good things this government, Trump, and the Republicans are doing as something terrible. What you're describing is exactly the information they're trying to present as something terrible. He's trying to use sports to distract people. Religion is the opium of the people. Religion was invented, guys, long before Iran. Let's say we had an Iranian operation carried out here. So it's just typical blogger nonsense that everyone repeats. Well, about Hitler, about Goering, about Goebbels. So take any lie, repeat it as often as possible, and by the 356th time people start to believe it, the same thing.
Well, to close this World Cup issue, it should be said that there's an ironic situation here. The Iranian national team qualified for this tournament, but at the same time it became a kind of hostage to geopolitics. The Iranian football players are basically locked up at their training base in Mexico since Iranian citizens are banned from entering the United States. And as some experts note, the situation is quite delicate and could become explosive. If Trump doesn't push through the peace agreement before the opening match of the championship, the tournament could turn into chaos with boycotts, walkouts, and political provocations right in the stadiums.
It will definitely turn into chaos, yes. Whether Iran is allowed or not, it will definitely turn into chaos, of course. There's too much money, trillions, tied up in preventing Trump from being re-elected, so imagining that this won't happen would be strange, even terrible. So of course it will happen, of course it will. Gentlemen, so to speak, if you are among those who receive rather than give, then you really need all of this to be terrible. And Trump didn't succeed at anything, and so to speak, first the Republicans re-elected someone, and then, so to speak, even Trump himself, as they say, was pushed out after 3 years. But if you are the ones who pay and who say, stop guys, come on, you're thieves, right? So to speak, right? You're a minority, we're a minority, I'm paying. We're a minority, but sort of, so to speak, we're saying, well guys, we understand that telling you stealing is bad is pointless, because you know it's good, right? You feel good when there's stealing. Well, all this mess comes down to this. Since you asked me, I'll answer you honestly. It comes down to the fact that there are a huge number of people who want to keep robbing the population, and there's a smaller group led by Trump who are trying to make it so we're not robbed. That's all there is to it. That's everything. Including aid to different countries, strikes, attempts to disrupt things, and so on. That's absolutely all. Where does the money go? Look where the money went.
A pretty big story happened the other day. If I'm not mistaken, Axios was the first to report about it, then several Well, quite large media outlets also wrote about it, about the serious scandal between Trump and the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu. The President of the United States was allegedly furiously yelling at the Israeli leader because the strikes on Lebanon were ruining the White House's plans, disrupting the carefully arranged truce, a truce with Iran. In a fit of anger, Trump allegedly even got personal, reminding Netanyahu that without American support he would be in prison. Disagreements, of course, happen in any relationship, but how do you see this situation? What does this moment say about Israel and the United States?
Well, first of all, it shows that the brilliant disinformation started by Trump himself is working because half the world is discussing it. I mean, how do you imagine this? Here's this naive Trump who hopes that the Iranians will literally bring peace tomorrow and who thinks that they aren't delivering, only because he thinks that if he stirs up Hezbollah a bit, who's shooting at them in Israel anyway? So he calls and yells at Netanyahu, his partner in probably the only military operation Trump has carried out in the last 5 or 6 years, and says to him, "You son of a bitch." And Netanyahu replies, "No, I won't stop, no matter what you say." Is that it? I don't get it. I understand why you're asking this question. People are writing about it, so you want to find out my opinion on it. Well, let me tell you how I feel about it. It's absolutely clear. Absolutely. Absolutely everything. It's clear. It's understandable. No questions are being asked. The only thing is Iran has 2 fists. One fist is called Hormuz. Close it and that's it. The second is called Hezbollah. There are approximately 150,000 rockets stored there. And Hezbollah is not Hamas, it's not the Houthis. Yes, it's the largest private army in the world, which has tens of thousands of fighters who have been under a UN resolution, I can't recall from which year, that requires them to disarm. They signed this disarmament agreement, but then they didn't follow through. Well, let's just say many do the same. Yes, Ukraine signed the agreement twice and let's say didn't fulfill anything they promised. Nothing they signed. So they also signed and didn't hand over a single rifle, not a single gun. So when they hit Hezbollah, it means that, let's say, regarding Iran, they are really, let's say, putting pressure on it while making it stand on one leg. Yes, I said it's standing on 2 legs. Yes. So this is absolutely in Trump's plans. Hitting Hezbollah is absolutely part of Trump's plan to step back and say, I just can't stop him. And what are the Iranians doing? They say, well, we made an agreement, yes, but we have these bad military guys who keep doing this. So we need to come up with something to appease them too, the military. Not only that, well, we would have signed a long time ago, but the military won't sign. That's it. This was all discussed beforehand. That is, the same goes for agreements, but not down to the details, of course, but definitely about who does what is being done, what is happening, what the objectives are. Come on, would Balfour have gone to take Israel without it being detailed? And why would Israel even meet with the Lebanese then? Son, the Israeli armed forces and the leadership met with the leadership of the Lebanese armed forces. There are no armed forces there. They need to be organized. They are being organized. Yesterday, gentlemen, it was announced that according to the agreement between Israel and Lebanon, zones free from Hezbollah will now be organized. Hezbollah, that's it. Zones free from external interference. What does this mean? It means that Israel is arming and training the Lebanese army. They are clearing parts of Lebanon and sending them there as police. For now, that's all the forces they have. The Lebanese army. And they keep training it so that at the right moment they can deploy it and say, us? We did nothing. We just bombed them from Balua. They have their own internal issues. We have nothing to do with this at all. So, gentlemen, how is this? I don't know. There, Trump beats his wife on Fridays. Which wife? The previous one. He's married to this one. He beats the previous one. I read something like that too, but that's about the same level of nonsense.
Nevertheless, Trump said in an interview with CNN that he quickly resolved the rift in relations with Israel. But at the same time, as I understand it, he got, well, a kind of blow from their side The House of Representatives passed a resolution that is supposed to limit his authority to wage war with Iran. And what do I note? Some commentators note that 4 Republicans also voted against Trump. How strong is this kind of internal blow to Trump? Will this somehow weaken his position in negotiations? And actually, what is happening? How much will this resolution influence the further course of events?
Well, from a legal standpoint, it doesn't affect anything. Zero. Everyone knows this, and they know it themselves too. Simply because even if the same or a similar resolution passes in the Senate, I am, by the way, in favor of limiting the powers, just to be clear, of the president, presidents in general, not this particular one, in general, President Obama, presidents. So this was done at one time, I think, after Vietnam. I think after Vietnam, I could be wrong. So, in other words, it was passed, so to speak, as a law, but for all this to actually become law, for it to really come back and become law and not just empty talk, it needs President Trump to sign it. Well, what do you think? Will President Trump sign something like that? No, he won't sign anything. Now, does this make his position weaker? Yes, and besides, Iranians know perfectly well that there won't be such a law. Well, that's the people on the street, out there, abroad, or someone else. I'll say it again. I absolutely agree that we need to limit the rights of one person in the United States of America, the biggest army in the world, and so on, to decide what to do. Here, Clinton made the decisions. When Congress representatives asked what he was doing, he replied, "Military operation? What do you mean? There is no military operation or war. I'm protecting the minority in Yugoslavia. 64 days of bombings, bridges, power plants, residential buildings, and so on. That's how he protects, yes." And there were several cases when the same thing happened with Reagan, so to speak. They started asking him, "Where are you sending the planes? What are you doing?" He says, "Look, guys, there's absolutely no war. It's just an operation to clear something from something over there. That's it." So Trump is doing the same thing. Right now, he's saying, "What war? Come on, guys, we have a change. There's no war here. If it starts again, well, then I have another 60 days. Is this good for, the internal situation? No, it's not good, of course, because quite a lot of people in the right-wing movement say that if we demand the other side to obey the law, then we must also demand that we obey the law. And that's the only thing, actually, that's serious in all of this, that there's a serious discussion about the president's powers. But if you only limit the rights of someone else's president, and when your own comes, you say, "This is my president, let him do whatever he wants because I like it," then that's no longer the law. That's just a tool you can twist whichever way you want, so to speak, and get the result you want. And that's why it's very good that there are people who come and say, "No, you can't do that." The only thing is, I wouldn't do that during negotiations. I just wouldn't do that because, well, all sorts of bad people would just be happy about it. But I would definitely do it. And I would probably have done it just on the second day after this war started, not now. Now, after all, negotiations are underway, and everything else, come on, it's nonsense.
As for the media and bloggers...
Sorry, what you said, Trump told CNN? Of course he told CNN. He was the one who came up with the idea that they have a problem with Netanyahu. He made it up himself. Of course he's going to tell everyone. So I'm the good cop, but I have a bad cop with me. Or like an investigator. Yeah, he's the bad cop. Do you think Netanyahu can breathe easy now without his partner, so to speak? Sorry, his main partner, telling him what to do or not to do? No, Netanyahu will do things his own way no matter what. That's it. And he'll say, "I don't care about the missiles you're supplying me. I'll do what I want." Well, that's just childish talk.
The media now has a reason to poke fun at Trump's physical condition. Just a few hours after Rubio was pompously telling journalists about the president's phenomenal stamina, he was saying that this guy literally doesn't sleep, works around the clock. Then an awkward incident happened. During an official event in the Oval Office, right in front of the TV cameras, Trump dozed off. The media quickly portrayed it as a strategic move, deliberately closing their eyes. How well is Trump doing these days? Is the president's health all right?
I just have one question before that. I'll be happy to answer. Yes? What do you mean by pretentious? You said that I told it in a pretentious way. In what sense pretentious? I just don't really understand what you mean.
Well, he talked about it very beautifully, very confidently, in a way that gave this event significant importance.
Well, look. When you say he spoke confidently, that's one thing. When you say pretentious, there's some kind of nasty negative meaning to it. So it's like you're immediately saying that the U.S. Secretary of State is deceiving us, and actually nothing really happened. When a journalist asks a question, especially in the honor that he later buries, so to speak, asks to be paid for it, he answers a different one. So it turns out that I am forced not to answer your question, but to return to the part that will immediately lead the viewers in a completely different direction. So the first answer, and there was no pathos in it. I watched it, Rubian. I wasn't there, he just answered. He answered with complete confidence. Guys, I've never seen anything like that. For a person to sleep 4.5 hours a day and then work at full capacity, that's complete fantasy. Now, so I want to say that for 3/4 of my life I slept 6.5 hours. Why? In my youth I read a lot of Freud. I found out, so to speak, how his, so to speak, well, falling asleep and waking up and so on, work. I understood, so to speak, how much sleep I need. 3:15 is my, so to speak, transition into and out of sleep. Again, I won't get into Freud's explanations. So, he says, in short, all my life up until recently, now I don't need it. I used to sleep 6.5 hours. That was absolutely enough for me. As soon as I slept 7 hours, I felt bad, because I was going back into sleep and I couldn't get rid of it. Trump gets by on 4.5 hours. Rubio talked about this too. But when you don't sleep for 2 or 3 days because of Iran or because of Russia or because of Ukraine or because of India or because of things at home, then afterwards, well, you have boring conversations. Unfortunately, Trump doesn't have a double. He just doesn't. It looks like Vladimir Vladimirovich has one, and that's much smarter. Because kissing young pioneer girls or babies on the belly and waving from the podium, your double can do that. Because they need a symbol, not you. Well, yes, unfortunately for Trump, so to speak, that's impossible in America. And that's why he has to, and so he sits. Naturally, he dozed off. What difference does it make? So I remember when he wasn't dozing off. Biden slept at every meeting. Biden didn't know which way to leave the stage, not a single one. Magazines, radio, television, and so on all over the world. They didn't write about it. And now, horror of horrors. So pretentious. Rubio is saying one thing, but actually Trump has dozed off. Well, he dozed off, so what?
Let's move on. Trump has once again made a statement about plans to change the regime in Cuba. According to him, the administration will deal with Havana right after they handle the Islamic Republic of Iran. Trump noted that on the way back we will make a brief stop to take care of this. Against this backdrop, the U.S. Treasury Department immediately imposed large-scale sanctions against the Cuban leadership, including President Diaz-Canel, relatives of Raul Castro, and Abdullah of the island's defense ministry. Announcement of regime change in Cuba on the way back from Iran. Is this a real geopolitical strategy or is it some kind of cowboy PR? Neither one.
Nor the other. This is pressure. It means pressure is coming from several sides. One thing is that we supposedly, so to speak, will land on the island along the way with all these ships. So we won't even need to send a special expedition just passing by. That's one thing, and the second is that it was recently made public. I think it was news for the Republicans, and that's why they just brought it up. Listen, it's a nightmarish story about Raul, and it's not about what he did within his own country. There's nothing we can do about that. Let them handle it themselves. Let them judge him, hang him, or quarter him. It's not our business. But what did he do to us? There was a story when, 4 pilots living in Florida bought Well, I don't know if they got the money themselves or someone gave it to them. A few Cessna planes. And they flew in pairs, then they bought another one, and now there were 3 planes. And they flew in pairs 7 days a week, as they say. In the morning, during the day, in the evening, at night. Over neutral, well, international waters are called neutral, without entering Cuban waters, right? And they watched to see if there were any rafts or boats or anything else, if they saw someone trying, because a lot of people were dying. And they would immediately notify the Coast Guard boats, and they would go and pick people up from the rafts, from the rafts. They saved 1,440 people this way. And then one fine day, when these 3 planes took off, and the waters were no longer Cuban, and the sky was not Cuban but international. According to all the satellites, according to all the data, this is known for sure. They were well out there, not just 100 meters away, right? Kilometers away from Cuban territorial waters. Cuban fighter jets take off, and they shoot down one, shoot down the second. While they were dealing with these 2 planes, 4 people died. One flying at a very low altitude, heads toward America, so to speak, and reports to the Coast Guard. In general, while they were shooting down those 2 planes, the 3rd one got away. And, well, he escaped and told this story. So later, through our spies in Cuba, we found out that the order was given specifically by Raul Castro. And now this has been brought out. It's out. And this is the basis. Yes, we've started the trial. The trial. We sent him a summons to appear. Naturally, he won't show up. It will be a trial in absentia. Yes, in absentia. The court does not recognize him as a person, and there will be a trial. And it looks like he will be sentenced to something. And then he will be put on an international wanted list. And then we will have the full, so to speak, opportunity to maybe do the same thing we did with Maduro. This, of course, puts very serious pressure on the Cuban side. And the negotiations on Cuba's surrender are being conducted by the grandson of Raul Castro, also Raul. They call him Raulito. So, well, there, Raulchik, yes, as we would say. And Raulito, who, so to speak, has already come of age and is conducting negotiations on behalf of the family, what will be allowed for the family. They wanted the right to stay there and use the money. We say one of 2 things. So either we let you take your money with you, but you all get the hell out of Cuba, or you stay, but we take away all the property you have abroad. That's what we're talking about right now. They will leave and free Cuba along with all the other communists, and they will have the opportunity to take their money and use it. Or, so to speak, they won't get that opportunity. Nothing else is happening. That's all.
And regarding these sanctions that the Treasury Department imposed, are any Treasury Department sanctions really capable of destroying the Cuban regime, which has survived under blockade for more than 60 years?
Well, destroy it? No. But that means we found that somehow, in some specific way, they still managed to get through, well, the blockade, sanctions, and so on. Sanctions were imposed. It just started leaking over there. We found it, closed it. Then it started leaking here. We found it, closed it. Yeah, it's clear that people will. But the whole world that's under sanctions, like Russia, Iran, they're all trying to do something, and they are doing it. Yeah. Because, well, it's impossible to control everyone everywhere all the time. Yeah. So, they came up with this. Like in one port, a ship comes in and takes some oil. Another, so to speak, oil tanker comes. They meet at point X. They transfer the oil and continue on their way. And while they're stopped, they turn off their transponders. So basically, they disappear from the radar, right? So they came up with this, and they came up with 20 other things too. It became more expensive. Russia gets less because of this, about $10 to $15 less per barrel and so on. But Iran, the same thing. But as soon as this is discovered, we try to shut it down. The only country in the world that stays one step ahead of thieves, bandits, terrorists, and so on is Israel. No one else does. They do the following. They run simulations. That is, they take a group that tries to come up with, what would I do in order to? They set a task. And so they run exercises. They try to infiltrate their airports, their facilities, and so on. That is, they are constantly actively thinking about what terrorists, bandits, thieves, and the like could do. And how can we? The rest of the world is reactive. The rest of the world is like, did something happen? Oh, well, let's react to that now. Something happened? Okay, let's react to that now. So as long as this is happening, as long as they say, not everyone in the world is smart, this is how it will keep happening. Well, yeah.
The U.S. abandoned plans to deploy Tomahawk missiles in Germany, which the Biden administration had been negotiating with Berlin about in 2024. Politico's sources cite two reasons. The first is the White House's fear of retaliatory actions from Moscow and a reluctance to escalate in Europe. And the second reason is much more prosaic. The U.S. is simply running out of missiles. The war with Iran consumed thousands of Tomahawks and Patriots in the very first weeks. Pete Hegseth reported to Congress that it would take months, even years, to replenish the arsenals. Chancellor of Germany, Merz, says even Americans are running low on missiles. And Berlin is frantically searching for European alternatives, which, I remind our viewers, cannot fully replace American weapons. Here's the question. Isn't Trump's fear, as Politico reports, of escalation with Moscow just a banal cover-up for the weapons shortage? And if it's simply a weapons shortage, how does the U.S. plan to contain China and Russia if American precision weapon stockpiles are so depleted?
Well, we don't know how depleted they are. According to what Hegseth reported, for example, it's about 50%, right? I don't know if that's true or not. Let's just say we're taking what he says at face value. The first statement is that Russia, the reason is, let's say, the fear of Russia's possible retaliation over there. I think that's the least of the concerns for the United States of America right now. And I emphasize it's the least of their concerns. Everything else worries them much more. And you named the second reason absolutely correctly. They started spending a lot. 2 wars to which we constantly send weapons. We are involved in one, and in the other we are not involved, but we send a lot. So it doesn't matter if they buy it from us, we get money for it, they promise to pay us, and that's it. We send it ourselves. It doesn't matter, we send a certain amount. And our production is not geared towards war. Actually, in 1940, when was it? When was Pearl Harbor? I just forgot, was it 42 or something? It just slipped my mind. Before Pearl Harbor, we weren't even geared for war. But a year passed and America started flooding the whole world with a huge amount of weapons. Basically, it helped Stalin win, helped Britain survive, helped the Europeans who were resisting, so to speak, survive there and so on. And also, so to speak, defeated Japan and Rommel and this one and that one. So we wouldn't want to repeat this experiment now because it means transferring a huge part of American industry from the free market to something that's just going to fly, explode, and be gone. We like to create assets that last, build houses, build railroads, cars, and things like that. And Britain, assets that explode and disappear, well, why the hell would you create that? That's not the kind of GDP we need. So, once again, as for Russia, I think we absolutely don't care. They're running out, they're almost gone. But there's another very important point which, again, just like with the question about the Olympics, is whether this is an attempt to distract attention, right? Well, gentlemen, we already have a doctrine that has been announced. So this is an enhanced, modified Monroe Doctrine, which is now jokingly called the Donroe Doctrine. From Donald. So this doctrine states, we are significantly reducing, if not completely withdrawing, our presence around the world except for one zone. So Trump calls it in his own way. I'll put it this way, 2,000 miles, or say 2,500 to 3,000 kilometers around all the borders of the United States of America. What does Greenland include? On one hand, the northern routes that pass by it. On the other hand, the Panama Canal, the Caribbean Sea, and so on. That is, just draw a line from the United States of America, from the border, about 2,000 miles in all directions, and you'll understand, give or take a few kilometers, where we're concentrating our troops, our capabilities. We're not limitless. We can't maintain balance all over the planet, you know? Of course, it's hard to keep large countries in check this way. But look, there were far fewer armed conflicts at the time when the US was acting as an international policeman, right? They'd go places and do things, but I don't support all of it, just to be clear. So, but nevertheless, it means that many conflicts didn't happen because people were afraid that those guys, whether in Green Berets or something else, would show up and start punishing them. Like when Iran moved toward Kuwait. Why that was our business, I don't understand. But for some reason we went there and started. I don't know. Maybe Kuwait paid a lot of money to our senators. Maybe something else. I had all sorts of thoughts about this. So for some reason we started a huge operation there, with huge amounts of money and so on to protect Kuwait from Iran. Well, why is that? Why should the United States of America protect Kuwait from Iran? Yes, I understand, to make peace there. Yes, like Trump did with India, Pakistan, Thailand, and Cambodia, and a bunch of others. Armenia, Azerbaijan, for example, yes. But why should we get involved there with our soldiers, with our money? It would be better if they paid us for arranging peace talks for them. Yes, in Africa, for example, yes. Let's say, who is there? Congo? Congo's, oh God, I forgot. What's it called? What's the name of that country? Right. And how many people were killed there? In 6 years, 30 million people were killed there. We stepped in and stopped it. So we stopped it, I understand. But sending troops there? Well, why? Do we really have to send troops? Are we supposed to be the world's police? We're tired of this. We just can't do it. We already have 30 trillion in debt, at least half of which is because we're busy protecting half the world. That's half the world. I'm not just saying this. I can prove it with numbers. How much money has America spent to reduce the number of wars in the world? Or the silly idea of figuring out who's right and who's wrong, and let's help the one who's right. Well, they might tell us to figure out who's beneficial to us and who's not. Okay, fine. Who's beneficial to us and who's not. To get involved there and help the one who's beneficial to us. We don't need to do that anymore. That's enough. We want to get out of there. Especially Europe. They have 550 million people. We have 350. Why should we protect them? Yeah, why should we protect them? In Ukraine, it was necessary. They gathered troops. They hadn't done that there from 1990 to 2022. But then, when it was necessary, they gathered, started to defend themselves, and with the help of foreign weapons, well, now they're partly defending themselves with their own. Why can't Europe do the same? France, Germany, they were once great empires. What, in just a few generations they lost their empires? Give me a break. You still criticize us and don't help when we need it. You're not obligated, and neither are we. That's right, we're not obligated. We won't place any cannons or missiles in Germany, and we'll withdraw our soldiers from there. Gradually. Gradually. No, that's from here. We need to protect our own ships that pass through all those Bosphorus and Dardanelles. I'm not talking about the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles right now. There's Turkey there, and it protects everything well on its own. That's why it's a normal calculation for a normal businessman. We're spending huge amounts of money and getting nothing in return. And then they even laugh at us and mock us while they themselves are getting fat. Yes, getting fat. If at least these idiots felt sorry if they were getting fat, but no, they're just getting fat. Just like in California, no matter how much you give, the officials will devour it all. The officials will devour it all. Europe or California, it's all the same, so that's all.
Well, Leon, I guess we should probably remember why Europe is in this situation right now. Because for decades, the U.S. cultivated this whole world's policeman narrative for decades. For decades, the U.S. basically didn't allow Europe to arm itself independently. We remember how, at one time, the U.S. forbade nuclear weapons. For example, developing them in France happened with a lot of resistance. So basically, the US took control of these levers of influence over defense and provided security for Europe themselves. And now, when Europe has become so complacent because it had this shield, it's understandable that it's in complete confusion.
Well, that's a great question, actually. Thank you very much. Let's separate things. We said let's not develop nuclear weapons because the more of them there are in the world, the worse it is. That's the only thing. We never told NATO countries not to arm themselves. Never. So we all signed with each other that each of us would spend 2% of our GDP on armaments. Whoever wants to spend more does. We spent 3.5 to 4% of our large GDP because we believed it was necessary. But NATO countries were supposed to stick to 2%. When Trump started to check this, it turned out that there were, I think, 2 or 3 countries that were close to this 1.5%. The rest were all around 1 or less. So we never told them not to arm themselves. We always said, arm yourselves. Now we'll give you a nuclear umbrella and that will be enough for you. And everything else, please guys, you have to handle conventional wars on your own. So we completely separated these two issues. I would really like, as they say in your question as well, I don't mean that you shouldn't have asked. I would like people to understand 2 different things in your question. One is the nuclear umbrella. Let's not develop it any further if possible. By the way, America made one mistake, which is the so-called peaceful use of nuclear energy. America got scared of the atom in general, so they said, okay, we already have it, we have a lot, we'll keep developing it, but we won't develop civilian nuclear power because it can be shot at, blown up, hit, and so on. Well, and so on. France, by the way, said no and kept developing it. And that's why, in my opinion, a significant part of their electricity comes from it. It seems to me, if I'm not mistaken, that French electricity comes precisely from small so-called nuclear power plants, which are well protected. There. Now, the situation as of today. Husband and wife. They've been living there for 20 years, yes. The husband works, and the wife kind of takes care of the house, yes. If she manages the house, it's for the good of the household. So when they get divorced, if he says, I'm taking everything I earned, that's wrong and unfair. That means you had a division of responsibilities. You bring in the money and she keeps the house, takes care of it, and so on. So there should be, let's say, some kind of division of the money he earned, but they both earned it because she was taking care of the home front. On the other hand, so to speak, she should gradually be encouraged to start taking care of herself in some way and not just live off his money. Now, this is a process, right? The same thing happens with countries. We're not telling Europe we're leaving tomorrow. No, we're saying, guys, we're going to withdraw our protection and you should build up your own. We offered you, and now you'll agree that because of the situation with Russia and China, you need to spend 5% of GDP. We weren't paying 2%, and now we've let it get to the point where we need to pay 5%. They say, oh, maybe by 2047 we'll reach that. So they all agreed, and honestly, except for Poland and someone else, I can't remember who, maybe Hungary, no one has even reached 4 yet. So, in other words, Europe said, it's clear, they said. It doesn't necessarily mean it will happen, but it's clear. We will rearm and you slowly withdraw at the same time, right? So we will. You withdraw slowly and we fill in with our weapons, our knowledge, and so on. And now we'll see, we will be leaving, but will Europe do it? Or will they say something? At all. In Stalin's time, they used to say, better be red than dead, which translated into Russian means it's better to be taken over by the Reds than for all of us to die. So we won't defend ourselves against the Reds. That's what the intelligentsia said. And what does the intelligentsia say? Then there's a wave without any protection. The people don't decide anything at all, only those close to power make decisions. And those close to power are the so-called educated class, right? I called them the intelligentsia for clarity, but they're really just the educated class. So they're the ones close to power, they're the ones who make the decisions. So they decided, like, I don't care. I'll live just fine. I'll live under communism or socialism or whatever else. But at least I won't die. Because if we fight, if we resist Stalin, then I'll die. Better to be red than dead. If Europe decides that way, go ahead, gentlemen. You'll end up speaking Chinese or whatever language. Ukraine is clearly showing it doesn't want that, right? It doesn't want to speak another language, says Ukraine in every sense of the word. So I don't think there's anything unfair about that.
Leon, by the way, to be fair, it's worth mentioning that just today, Lithuania officially announced that it is increasing its defense spending to a record 5.38% of GDP, and it becomes the first country in NATO history to surpass the 5% mark in defense sector funding. Who would have thought it's Lithuania?
Lithuania? I realized and recalled that someone else remembered, but someone didn't recall who. Yes, Lithuania. Good job, Lithuanians. Well, but they have their own, let's say, personal interest. They understand that Russia might not attack them, but do something completely different. Do the same thing that started happening in Ukraine. Yes, to send people in there, it's harder in Lithuania, easier in Latvia. So, I was there recently, in both places. Yes, and judging by the mood of the Russian-speaking population in the region, it's clear that they can easily organize internal riots and all sorts of disturbances to quickly overthrow the government. The next day, they could ask Putin to come in. Putin is immediately ready for this and comes in. And then he says, well, they did all this themselves. It's not me, right? It's not NATO. It's not a strike against NATO. It's a request from the country's leadership to protect them from, well, and so on. That's how it is in Latvia, yes. In Lithuania. Anything is possible, but maybe they just don't want anyone to even get such an idea. After all, we arm ourselves not to fight often, but so that no one tries to fight us.
Well, continuing on this topic, the German newspaper Welt publishes an insight that the US has given NATO an official list of military equipment that they no longer intend to provide to the alliance as part of the rapid response system at the border with Russia. Washington is drastically cutting its presence in Europe, taking away half of its cruiser destroyers, a third of its F-16 fighters, some F-15Es, and reducing the number of tanker aircraft. It is completely removing all its newest tankers from NATO's plan, as well as all reconnaissance aircraft and drones. So, looking at this, let's call it an execution list for NATO. Can we say that the US is actually starting to take real steps to withdraw from its commitments to defend Europe?
Commitments to defend Europe. Well,
that's what it used to be called.
Maybe it used to be called that, but we have mutual commitments to each other. And nowhere does it say that we have to do this alone. And it sounds something like this. You are obligated to protect me. That's it, I won't guard my house anymore because I'm going to sleep and you are obligated to protect me. Nothing like that has ever happened in my life. If you fulfill your obligations, then we fulfill ours. We have a nuclear umbrella and we maintain it. If attacked with nuclear weapons, we will respond in kind. Everyone knows America will retaliate, so such attacks won't happen. And whatever else is happening over there, well, you already have 550 million people. Why can't you make your own tanks? Why can't you make your own missiles? Why can't you make your own submarines? Do you want us to teach you? Well, you already know how to do silly things, right? We can teach you if you need, no problem. And for us to keep so many people abroad, well, at some point that's enough, right? World War II ended a long time ago. Soon the United Nations will collapse and end, just like it was built on the ruins of World War II, just as the League of Nations was built on the ruins of the First World War and ended, right? This one will end too. Well, that's it, guys. A new order is coming. A different order is coming. We have different priorities now. England, which didn't let in 2 American bloggers because they were supposed to perform at a festival there, those 2 bloggers, right? Yesterday, their entry visas were canceled because they spoke positively about the war in Iran. What? So, England, where in Hyde Park you could go out, stand on a stool and shout, "Down with the Queen, down with the government, down with Britain." And today the police protected you from someone who might throw a stone at you or something else. And this very England which let Britain off Marx and Lenin slip through its fingers. You see, Marx spent most of his life there. He wrote Capital while sitting in London, right? No one bothered him. And suddenly England has reached the point where it doesn't let in even American dissidents. People who have a different opinion on some issue, an opinion you don't want others to hear because they could explain that opinion. Damn it, what kind of partners are they? They're our enemies, not partners. Well, maybe they're our enemies, our opponents. Yes, enemies are something else, right? Look, we don't want socialism, we don't want a lack of freedom, we don't want to go where you're going, we don't want that, guys. Why should we protect you from scumbags just like you? Like Putin, just 2 steps ahead. Not only did he ban things there, he also killed. He blew things up, killed, rigged things. We also blew things up, by the way, killed, rigged things. But less so, more timidly. Timidly. Why? What do we have to do with this England? We had something to do with the England where the Charter was written. We made our law dependent. Our law is based on the British. Our United States of America, the great book that created the United States of America, Common Sense, Thomas Paine's Common Sense, was written here in America. But he came here from Britain, wrote it in Boston, and because of that, things changed. Because of this book. Just as Marx had a tremendous influence on what happened later, mainly in Eastern Europe, Paine's book had the same kind of influence on America, and from England in general, from Britain. What kind of allies are you to us? To hell with it. We don't even want to sit in the same field with you, excuse me. That's exactly how it is with you. That's why, no, we were absolutely shocked that Spain made us pay huge amounts of money for the planes, for transportation and so on. We weren't allowed to land. We weren't allowed to fly over Spain because they were against it, right? And you don't mind when rockets are constantly being fired at Israel? You don't mind that houses are being blown up there? You don't mind that for how long now? 70, almost 78 years. Yes, there's been war every day. That's what you don't mind. You're fine with it. You vote against Israel, yes. Ah, sorry. And now you're against America, which has given you so much, which protects you. Please, guys, that's enough. Really, that's enough. We were your protectors. Yes, we're to blame. We're to blame for not making you fulfill your obligations. Oh, what a terrible thing to blame us for. That's why we're to blame. Well, that's enough. That's it. We're stopping this. We're leaving. We're leaving. Is it true? We've been talking about this every day for a year now, I think, right? We're leaving. We're leaving. We're leaving. Get used to it, please. We're leaving.
Don't you think, Leon, that such a move by the US, for example, could be seen by Putin as an invitation to test NATO's borders? Now they don't have the American umbrella. They don't have America picking up the tab. I'll try to go to Europe.
Very good idea. He'll try to enter Europe but can't get past a third of Ukraine or even 20%. Europe? To hell with it. What are you talking about?
Well, I think that at the very least, Russia is definitely capable of carrying out some kind of operation in the Baltic countries.
Well, we just discussed it with you. If we're talking about, practically speaking, well, let's say deceptively broken up, yes, easily. And what does America have to do with this? And what would America protect Latvia if, say, the government changed there, the government voted and demanded that Russia send in troops for something like that? What, would we really go and defend Latvia? Never in my life. Well, so what? What kind of protection? I don't understand. I really don't understand the question.
Well, the question is that with the withdrawal of American weapons and American troops from Europe, there are voices saying that this could be a kind of invitation to Putin.
More. An invitation to what?
To aggression.
Physical aggression? Bring in tanks or something? Missiles, tanks? Is that what you mean? Just explain it to me. I'll be happy to answer with what I know.
Among other things, we understand that a direct
attack with
conventional weapons is unlikely to work now, but most likely it will be a hybrid war using various methods of warfare.
Please let me speak. I don't understand the word hybrid. For me, hybrid means, oh, that's it, we'll throw anything at everyone. With what, hats or something? Will tanks be involved in this hybrid war or not?
Well, I think to some extent probably yes. Because, for example, Ukraine has learned to destroy tanks, but Europe doesn't have either the skills or the necessary number of drones, for example, to destroy armored vehicles.
And so, tell me please, a year ago, when we announced it, Could Europe have started building drones with the help of Ukrainian specialists? Europe, 550 million people. Could they have started building drones or not?
Definitely could.
Well, then why isn't it building them? Well, it's like Ukraine from 1990 to 2022 did nothing to protect itself. Why? And we have the Budapest Memorandum, but what does it say? Has anyone checked? No, it says that we will be protected. But actually, it says something very simple. It says if someone attacks you, we will go and complain to the UN. And that's it, really, that's all. There's nothing else written there. Well, for example, there are a lot of nice words about how Ukraine wanted to give this weapon to someone. It was deteriorating, I can assure you, and so on. America and Europe were worried that they would start selling it to bandits, to criminals. By criminals, I mean those terrorists. They said it's better to give it to someone who already has plenty, right? And for that, I don't know, maybe we'll send some treats personally to Kuchma or Shmihal, but I wasn't present for that, right? Something like that was going on. Well, in Kuchma, obviously, Kuchma said, let's do it this way. We'll deceive my Ukrainian people and say that everything is fine. They're dumb. They won't look at what's written there. So I'll just say America will protect us, then England, right? Everyone will believe me without checking the documents. That's how it'll go. That's it. I'll give away all the weapons, just like they did. Meanwhile, I'll sell some long-range missiles to Iran. What did Iran need them for? To shoot at Israel. Oh, that's good. They sold 12 long-range missiles with a range of 3,000 kilometers, Father. They also sent their scientists to Iran, there's evidence of that, to help Iran develop nuclear weapons. What kind of missiles did they sell? They sold missiles that can carry a warhead. You can put a nuclear one on them. So Iran specifically requested these kinds of missiles, and those are the ones they sold. And now Iran has enough for exactly 12. Why? It's even strange, isn't it? 12 missiles that can fly 3,000 kilometers to Tel Aviv, to Jerusalem, to any American base, right? And for those 12 missiles, they have uranium enriched up to 60, and some say even up to 70 or 75%. For those 12 missiles. Thank you. There you go. So why should we protect people who are doing this? I don't understand why we should waste money on that. And why should we care that Europe doesn't have a single battalion? How come? You Europeans have been lying to us all this time, saying everything is fine, that you have such strong protection. So you just need the Americans to be there too, right? Well, go ahead, guys. You've had a year since we said it. We're leaving. A year. We're leaving. And did you do anything? No. You say how bad America is because it's leaving. We're leaving, guys. You understand, right? Oh, you're leaving? We've been talking about this for a year. We're leaving. Thank you.
The broadcast time is coming to an end. I'd like to discuss one more piece of news before we finish. President Stubb of Finland made, in my opinion, quite a sensational and paradoxical proposal. And he stated that he believes it's time to expand the European Union to about 40 countries and turn it into a powerful global player that doesn't depend on Washington. And in the list of potential EU members, the Finnish president included not only the United Kingdom, Turkey, Norway, and Iceland, but also Canada. He stated that it's better to be a member of the EU than just another state of the US. That's quite a statement. It's like a slap in the face to the Trump administration, which is focused on Europe, coming from the Europeans. What did the Finnish president want to show with this? Continued.
He wanted to show, yes, to his domestic audience how tough he is, as the Georgians say, vashkats. In Russian, it means what a brave hero he is. Most are like Tarzan. He beats his chest and says, well, let's take his statement seriously, shall we? Seriously. Let's take 40 EU countries. Who would even join you? Guys, come on. Only those who have no money are joining. Because Ukraine, for some reason, dreams of joining the EU, they have absolutely no idea what will happen there. The EU is an absolute Soviet Union created according to the following principle. So, the chassis is produced there, the engine is made here, the wings are made here, and everything is assembled in a fourth place. Why? Why in different countries? So that it can't fall apart. At the same time, the second thing is that everything is produced in those countries where we, the ones who created the European Union, said it should be produced, namely in Germany, France, Italy. So why is this important? Because as soon as you join the EU, you sign a document stating that you will not compete with the leading EU countries. That is, if you produce the same things that compete with what is made in Germany, you have to shut it down. Why would you do that? Yeah, that's just nonsense, right? But they tell you, we'll give your country 20 billion, and you personally get 200 millions. And you sign it, and you tell the people, we're getting 20 billion. That's enough for us to build schools for the children and so on. 10 years go by. It turns out you have unemployment, that your children are going abroad to the EU who can now freely go there to work. They forget their parents since they've already worked, bought apartments, gotten married, and so on, so they don't return. And then the EU comes to you and says, do you want another 30 billion? Yes, of course we do. Yes. Now let's start accepting black people and Muslims. Well, we don't want to. Well, if you don't want to, then it won't work. Well, you brought us to this yourselves. Well, what can we do? Yes, you did. But you as adults shouldn't have signed it if you were so smart. But the good news is, another 200 million straight into your own pocket. There, it's all the EU. The EU. I saw this in Lithuania, I saw this in Latvia, I saw this in other countries that joined the EU. Because the EU can only accept the poor and the unfortunate, who, for a handout now, well, it's like, putting people on, so to speak, government handouts, right? They sit there, they're afraid to lose it, they don't make any moves. Because, well, if I make a move, they'll take it away from me. And then what will I do? And if they don't make a move, unemployment will keep growing and growing, and the continued settlement by Muslims and black people will keep happening. So it's a kind of spiral that I wouldn't wish on any country. More or less, countries with decent budgets and decent opportunities would never in their lives go for this nonsense. So yeah, say whatever you want. Who cares?
Leon, thank you so much for being with us. And for our viewers, that was political scientist and public figure Leon Weinstein. To you, dear viewers, thank you so much for joining this broadcast. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. See you soon.
Goodbye.